Academics podcast, where we explore the crossroads of scholarship, play, and practice. I'm your host, Christopher Carbone, scholar, educator, and of course, lifelong gamer. Each week this semester, we will discuss with brilliant minds how analog games, real-world practice, support meaningful change and challenges us to think critically, whether in the classroom, the clinic, communities, or beyond. This week, I'm joined by
Stephen Hall. I am a humanist masquerading as a computer science guy.
Yes! Stephen, so great to have you here. It's been a while, but Stephen, where would people know you? Obviously, you are known to the board game academic community.
Yes. Well, so first of all, thank you for having me, Chris. It's good to be here. So I wrote one of the journal articles for issue 2 of Board Game Academics called "Computer Science as a Board Games as a Framework for Computer Science."
Mm-hmm.
I presented at the conference in 2024.
Excellent. And everybody, we'll talk about this more, but the boardgameacademics.com is the website where you can find Stephen's scholarship there, open and available access for everybody. So when you get done listening to this conversation, go to the website, read his scholarship, and we'll also have all the information to contact Stephen at the bottom of the page in the show notes.
I welcome all critiques, corrections, and angry letters.
Especially the angry letters.
Yes. Please, yes.
Care. Show some care
right.
in there. Stephen, obviously there's so much to talk about your scholarship, what you're doing now, what you're going to be doing in the future. But before I get into all that fun stuff, just for fun's sake, do you have a favorite game? Do you have a favorite game system? What are you playing?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of. I mean, I'm something of an omni gamer.
Nice.
If I had to choose, some of my favorite mechanisms would be I love deduction. I love games with heavy negotiation. Cosmic Encounters, one of my favorites. Resistance, one of my favorites.
Uh-huh.
I'm much more of the sort of like Ameritrash camp than the Euro camp,
Yes.
but I did cut my teeth on Puerto Rico Power Grid,
Mm-hmm.
back in the early aughts. So I've definitely kind of been around the block in terms of the types of games I play. I've organized the game groups for probably almost 20 years.
Wow.
I mean, it's been my number one hobby for more than half my life and remains my number one hobby to this day. I also do. I'm a game reviewer for a website at geeksundergrace.com. We're a faith-based community for all things geeky. I specialize in tabletop reviews there, so I love working with publishers on that, writing reviews, playing, evangelizing about games. And using them in academic settings.
Sure. Just a little more of a geek question for you. Cosmic Encounter. Do you have a favorite race?
Man, I think maybe my
there's a lot of them. People don't know.
That's a tough question. There's one I love. And off the top of my head, I'm blanking on what the name of it is.
Sure, just the mechanic is important.
But there's one. It's maybe like the Leech, I think.
Okay.
And what the Leech or whatever the name of it is, what this race does is they don't have to be invited to join an alliance. And so for like 85-90% of the game, it's a useless power. But at the very, very end, when that player gets to 4 points, no one wants to invite them to ally on offense.
Yes.
And that's when they become super powerful because all they have to say is, I think I'm going to jump on there anyway. I know you don't want me, but I'm going to jump on there. Yeah. And then the active player has this funny conundrum of, if I win this battle, this player will win, maybe along with me or solo. So it's this very funny, annoying troll power. And it just always makes me laugh to play. But I love, Cosmic is great, and I've played it many, many times.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I love about Cosmic Encounter best, is just all of those different, beyond genius kind of alien powers and how they play so differently, and then how you play interact with what other people get. Like if someone gets the virus power, you're like, you gotta get him. He's aggressive, get him. Or the player gets the one where you can cheat as long as you can get away with it.
That one, that's a little bit,
it's Too meta?
that's a little annoying and
Yeah.
and meta, but it's funny. I mean, but I love how that game. I always, whenever I'm describing it to people who haven't played it, or really who aren't big gamers anyway, I always talk about it as this game is balanced because it's not balanced. It's
Yes.
fundamentally every player is fundamentally overpowered in a game-breaking way.
Yes.
But because of that, if everyone is grossly overpowered, then the game is balanced, and that's just a
Yeah.
fascinating idea.
Yeah.
And it just never ceases to amaze and amuse me.
It's true.
So-
And the game could literally be 5-10 minutes and you never get to play a turn, or the game could go on for an hour plus, and just based on the dynamics of those different races and how they kind of interact with each other. So
I've seen games where was two new players and really non-gamer types, never played Cosmic Encounter, won together without having a turn. It's like there's just not many games where that kind of thing can happen.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's wild, and it never ceases to be wild.
That's crazy. Fantastic game. Definitely everyone should check that out. So, Stephen, tell me, give me the name of your academic article in the journal so people can find it, and then give me some background. Tell us about it.
Sure. So my article was called "Board Games as a Framework for Computer Science," and this article sort of came out of my own personal experience, both as a gamer and someone who does computer science work. So computer science was not initially my background. I said I call myself a humanist masquerading as a CS guy.
Sure.
And that's because for my initial round in academia, my degrees were in art history and library science. I was interested in museum work and library work. And those were the two jobs that I did for a combined 13 years. I worked as a museum curator and a librarian for many years. While I was doing that, and the whole time there, I was an avid gamer. But while I was doing that sort of humanistic work, I kind of independently became interested in computer science just for fun, kind of a nerdy hobby that I wanted to learn how to write code and just wanted to explore computers a little bit more than I had before. And if you have ever tried to write code, when you're first learning, it can feel very kind of abstract and arcane, kind of confusing and frustrating, because you're having to learn how to speak in in a way a computer understands, in terms of logic and math and pure Boolean black and white, yes or no, true or false. It's very scientific, and so as someone who is more of a humanist, it was a little bit difficult for me to thread that needle. But there was this pivotal moment that really is one of the key moments of my entire life, was when I suddenly realized that what computer science programming really is just game logic.
Yes.
And as soon as I realized that, it was this big light bulb, my entire outlook on both computer science and also on board games foundationally changed. All of a sudden I started to see rather, something like random number generation,
Yes.
the backbone of many a computer program. It's just rolling a die. That's all it is. Rolling a die. True and false, yes or no statements. We see these all throughout board games. Game states about, is a worker space available or is it not? Is a stone in Go surrounded or is it not? And and we see conditionals: if A, do B; otherwise, if C, do D. And when I had this moment of realization, I was like, wow, this is what I'm learning about in the context of programming. I already know second nature from being a gamer.
Yes.
And so that was a really really transformative moment for me. And as soon as I had that, I started to look at games differently,
Yes.
as algorithms and logic structures. And I started to look at computers as game rules and game logic. And so it was this kind of meshing of the two. And so for a long time, I was sort of mulling this idea over in my mind about these things are really closely related, and I never knew that, and I never had considered it. And the more that I dug into this, I realized that I was the one who was missing the boat because folks in computer science, they already knew this. It was news to me,
Yes.
but they already, folks who were in STEM, in engineering and computer science, they often love games, and it finally made sense to me why that is. Because it seemed a little bit counterintuitive because I noticed that a lot of the people that I was gaming with or that I observed were in the hobby
Yes.
were these kind of like tech forward programmers, data scientists, AI engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers, all these very like technological disciplines. And board games seem to be very antithetical to that. They're static. Generally, they're physical components. There's nothing programmatic or computational about them. It would seem. Um, but when that light bulb went off, I was like, wow, I just really understand things in a different way. And it made me realize that for other people who are learning computer science and are feeling like it's frustrating, arcane, confusing, this is a way to reframe that and put it in a way that people understand. I mean,
Yes.
the majority of people out there have never touched a coding environment, but the majority of people out there have played a board game. And so it's this kind of touchstone that people understand. And if you kind of direct their focus to think about computers in that way, it can make it make sense in a whole new way.
True. And so many people, so many designers are computer programmers. I mean, our keynote speaker last year, Emerson Matsuchi, just computer science architect, programmer, and then he just comes out with Century Spice Road. So from an outside person in the gaming industry looking in, you're like, well, this person must be a historian, he must be in marketing, he must be in business. And it's just like, no, it's an algorithm formula that I put together that I then applied. And he did one of the most brilliant things is you can play the first game in connection with in total, all three of his games. And they all work in concert together. Again, genius level kind of stuff. So, like you said, the people at the table and the game designers, just all this same kind of consciousness, the way of looking at the world, the way of looking at tabletop gaming, the way of processing cognitively the little, the cubes and the bits on the board. Damn, man, we are so much smarter than we thought we were.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, what it showed me was that I understand computer science more than I thought I did.
Yes.
And I think the same can be said for just about anyone. You might think I have no idea about anything related to computer science,
Sure.
but if you think about it in game terms, you might think differently.
Definitely. It's a language like anything else.
It is.
And when you're at the game table, you're in that shared, sometimes people call it a magic circle as far as the rules are concerned, but it's just stating a language in which we'll all speak together for that game period. So someone's written that language, written a rubric, and we are taking that, and that's how we're communicating together with the movements on the board, the changing the cubes, the different power sets. Again, how many languages? And again, a lot of times we talk about tabletop gaming. Once you played one type of game or one type of game mechanic, you can play others.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like I learned a language, I learned a dialect, and I can apply the dialect to this other language, which is very similar. So the Romance languages, they're all based in Latin, and they have all the
They're
same
all related,
kind of,
right?
Yep. So once you know one,
Right,
you know some elements for the other.
Right, and you see this through line from one to another. Magic the Gathering deck construction to Dominion style deck building to Race for El Dorado, using deck building in concert with a race mechanic, and you can kind of see how these things evolve, and how they're all connected, and that was a really kind of revelatory moment for me.
Fantastic. And again, it's something I think everybody should read your scholarship here, because I think they have the opportunity to be awakened to that idea, and maybe even awakened to a different career or a new opportunity to look at the world. Because again, we take for granted the fact what we're doing and why we're doing it, but there's so much immense value in the universes that kind of underlie all that we can kind of engage with. Fantastic. So now tell me, from that work or in your everyday work, what are you looking to do next? What are you doing currently?
So a way that I have used this work in the past. So
Yeah.
my most recently my job was at the University of Pennsylvania. I was their librarian for computer science and engineering. So my work
Hmm.
was in a library in support of a college that's doing engineering and applied science.
Yes.
Um, and so naturally, again, we have a lot of folks who are doing this kind of technical heavy tech forward work that I recognized as related to board games. And I decided to try to implement this in the classroom, or rather, like, in the library setting, kind of an informal learning setting, and sometimes in
Yes.
the classroom directly, just as a way to help folks understand, a new way to think about what they're learning. And also, I found it was useful for folks who were not in those STEM forward fields, but again, who may have been gamers, and that was the hook to bring them there was, oh, I like board games.
Yes.
Maybe there's a deeper connection here about something that I don't know. And so I found a lot of success doing that. As for sort of future directions, um, I'm still doing some of this research, and I'm having conversations with people um, who are in these kind of STEM fields, and who use gaming in that line of work. I've been doing a lot of research about the sort of the history of this, because again,
Hmm.
while this was a revolutionary thought to me, it was well established in the computer science domain for decades prior, that board
Yes.
games were a really good case study for this. And so I've
Yes.
been digging into that a little more about sort of some of these early attempts to study AI.
Hmm.
Back in like the way olden days of AI.
Yes.
Um, early experiments in like machine learning that
Yes.
were based around checkers. Seeing neural networks being developed in the early 90s, again, like in the infancy of them, based around the game of backgammon.
Hmm.
How we saw chess programs being developed at universities and laboratories, and these sort of teams of geeks would compete. They would have their programs compete against each other, and ultimately that led to Deep Blue and the famous chess match against Gary Kasparov. And like I've been digging into the history there, uh, and I'm interested now in the age of AI and LLM type programs. We're seeing kind of a paradigm shift in what it means to use a computer. AI is now everywhere, and it's ever prevalent. And right now I'm mulling over kind of what are the tabletop implications of that as well.
Yes.
In this new brave new world of AI and LLMs and whatnot, how do games fit into that? Um, Also, I have sort of there's two side projects that I they're in the I swear I'll do them someday category, which I'm sure we all have a list of I swear I'll do that someday. And mine are I would like to write a sort of a biographical account of Sid Sackson's life, his life and his contributions to the tabletop hobby. He's, in my opinion, the greatest designer that ever lived. Um, Three of his games are in my top 10 of all time:
Fantastic.
Can't
Yeah.
Stop, Sleuth, and I'm the Boss.
Yeah.
Acquire, before anyone says it, I like Acquire too. It's just not that much. I don't like it as much. Um, but so I'd like to write sort of an account of his life and how his work has impacted, I would argue, most every hobby game that has come out since he was first designing. He
Yes.
influenced generations of designers.
Absolutely.
And I would argue that you would be hard pressed to find any game being made today that can't in some way trace its lineage back to something he did.
Yes.
I heard, I forget who it was that said this, but I heard um, Sid Saxon is your favorite designer's favorite designer.
Wow, that's
And
great.
and I'm like, I mean, I know, like, I've seen Eric Lang. I know talks
Yeah.
about him, and like I think that's really right. He was like the original grand master of game design, I would say. So I'd like to write about him and explore his life a little more. Also, a completely different project. And Chris, maybe this will be another article someday. I make no promises, but I'd like to write about the historical preservation of legacy games,
That's
because
interesting.
I think that again, sort of an idea that I'm mulling over, and I have something written. It's not very good at this point, but it's just generic thoughts I've written down about how some of the unique challenges that come from trying to preserve legacy games. It's one thing to preserve non-legacy games.
Hmm.
That's simply a matter of keeping them in an archive, making them available, protecting the physical components. But
Yes.
legacy games offer interesting and irregular challenges to that,
Hmm.
when the very action of using them often involves destroying them, and that seems
Yes.
to be at odds with historical preservation.
Yes.
Um, and so it's just an interesting conundrum. And I've been looking to sort of a sister hobby to board games of video games, and
Hmm.
there's been a lot of scholarship done about preserving what they call digital worlds. Um, Preserving, how would we preserve something like World of Warcraft or Second Life, these online games that are, they're well played now,
Hmm.
but they're kind of always at risk. What if a server was
Yes.
shut down, or what if the entire player base just dropped off? So the server's still up,
Yes.
but no one's playing it.
Yes.
It's the massively multiplayer notion that gives those meaning, that puts meat on the bones of those games. And so, even though they're still, actively supported, they are always kind of in a precarious position. And I've been sort of looking at that. I've been looking at legacy board games kind of through that lens of, there's
Okay.
also, if ever it happened that, Z-Man stopped making Pandemic Legacy,
Yes.
well, now all of a sudden there's a finite number of those in existence that will likely dwindle down.
Yes. True.
And I don't necessarily have great answers to these questions, but I'm thinking about the questions at this point. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
No, it's tremendous. Again, I think the Sid Saxon, conversation is absolutely necessary now more than ever, as we speed ahead and don't really take into consideration the historical or game design kind of foundations for it. And again, like you said, also from the digital front, as a digital archivist or archaeologist, so many of those digital role playing games are gone now. And they were so integral to people's experiences and existence, EverQuest. And I'm blanking on the name, if you remember the one where everybody was superheroes. That was
Yes.
one of the early ones.
Yep.
And that was something that was like revolutionary at the time, really well maintained. People really found a community there. And then it shut down. And then what happens in that kind of circumstance from a sociological or psychological point of view, that has not been retained, that there was a civilization, a digital civilization, but a civilization did exist with people, and they built a culture around that. The original Star Wars Online, that had
Right.
a civilization and culture,
Yep.
and or even what Warcraft talks about sometimes, and I can't remember specifically, but there was someone who was able be to get a plague, and then they found a way to teleport throughout World of Warcraft and infect other people. And then people took it, then researchers took that on and said, this is how a pandemic would happen. This is how a spread would happen. This was long before the COVID-19 pandemic. And
Hmm.
it was like
Interesting.
they were looking at that situation that actually happened
Yeah.
as a future possibility for a pandemic and its spread. And again, utilizing that for the understanding and the research possibilities of like, how could we stop that? How could
Right.
we contain that?
Right.
And again, because you had real human behavior, real action in a world, and there was something to be learned from that. But again, what happens? I think, I mean, Stephen, all these are really brilliant, kind of. And again, like you said, the funniest one, I guess, is like you said, the legacy board games, because they're meant to be destroyed. Like, you, in order to play them, you must destroy them. So yes, even every copy that's produced is in danger of disappearing. So eventually the day will come that there will be no copies of this board game because they will be played. The irony of it all, it's been played, it's gone, you
Right.
know?
Right. The act of using them
Yes.
butts heads with the act of preserving them.
And historically, that's what we've always loved about tabletop games, and like we've held on to, is that the value of a tabletop game is you can play it and then play it again later, play it 20 years. You know, I bought all these games. Do not worry. Our kids will play with them,
Right.
like 15,
Not
20
so
years
much
from
with
now.
those kind, yeah.
No, it's gone. That experience, that board state, that world that's unique to that player. And again, like when they talk about if you shuffle a deck of cards, it's almost infinite number of possibilities. Like that board state is unique. And that world that was created by the gamers in that table and that legacy or risk legacy, all those other legacies, Seafall and stuff like that, like that will never exist anywhere else and has almost certainly been thrown in the garbage because
Right.
it's done. Can't play it anymore.
Right. And so I've been considering this also through something. I've been thinking about this in terms of wine connoisseurs,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's actually kind of a similar conundrum of, you know, having these bottles of wine that are from, you know, whatever year, 1990 or something like that. And as soon as the calendar ticks over to 1991, there's now a fixed number of these.
Yes.
And every time somebody opens one at a bachelor party or whatever,
Yeah.
well, now there's one fewer.
There is.
So, you know, and surely, you know, in the example of wines, surely there are a number of wines that have been made over you know, the course of decades where
Yes.
there are none left. They have
Yes.
completely disappeared from the planet.
Yes.
And I think about, you know, particularly, you know, in the tabletop hobby, which is bigger than it's ever been before and still growing.
Yes.
We see great stake in, you know, great interest in things like the Spiel des Jahres and Kenner Spiel des Jahres. Pandemic Legacy won the Kenner Spiel. So, like, surely, you know, it's a milestone game. We would all agree about that.
Yes.
And so it doesn't seem far-fetched to think that in 100 years, people will be doing research about the early Legacy games. And
Okay.
how do we prepare those future researchers? How do we give them the tools, make sure that they'll have the tools that they'll need to do that research in this weird situation of using it is destroying it?
Yes.
These
It's
are the
also-
things that keep me up in the middle of the night.
I mean, it's a valuable conversation that we're glad to have here, and also have with the journal and the conferences and things like that, because I think it's essential to the nature of being human. And I blank on the quote, the person in particular for the quote, but play precedes culture. So the fact that we are playing these types of games, they are influencing our culture, and inevitably the culture is influencing these games. But the destruction or the ending, the finite nature of these things is also very true of what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
So that experience in that game, at that game table, that world in which we create together, is so quintessential of what it means to be human. So, but it's a very small format that would be wonderful if it could be archived and saved and studied and explored, because 100 years from now, or again, not even 100 years from now, but like a lot of the journal articles that we're putting out now is based on, hey, did you know that these tabletop games, like for example, one of the articles from our first conference was about the War of 1812, and there was tabletop games about that. And the fact that people were playing that, the fact that there was propaganda there, the fact that there was world building in that thing, and it was reflective of the culture in the world. I mean, it's happening right now. It's a very dynamic conversation that we're having the whole time. Even if we don't know we are.
Yeah, play precedes culture. Interesting. I
Yeah,
think
because in order to create culture, you have to play. Does
yeah,
these
sure.
rules work? Like let's try painting lines down the street.
Hmm.
And that was an accident with a milk truck that somebody noticed from the city government. It was like, hey, if there is a line down here, I'm going to follow this rule, this magic
Right,
circle kind of concept.
right.
If we all follow it, now we've built a culture around it,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like
I suspect that the person who said that quote was Michael Scott quoting Wayne Gretzky.
it has to be. I've read his book. It's he manages somehow. That's all I have to say about that. No, there's a lot of great stuff. Now, Stephen, by chance, we are having a conference at the Strong National Museum of Play. Maybe you can let people know about that museum and maybe why they would want to attend our conference that's coming up on October 4th and 5th.
Sure. So the Strong Museum, it's in Rochester, New York.
Mm-hmm.
It is the place for the study of play. It's the National Museum of Play.
Yes.
It is a geek paradise. You cannot even imagine how much play related content is there. Um, Both, things like video games, board games, toys, you name it. Any objects of play probably live there. So,
Yes.
if you're interested in like the history of toys, like old Barbies and GI Joes, they've got them. Interested in board games, they have the Sid Saxon collection and a whole treasure trove of other games.
Yes.
You may have heard about the Toy Hall of Fame,
Mm-hmm.
the National Toy Hall of Fame. Well, that's the organization that does that. They publish the American Journal of Play. So
Yes.
if you are, it's certainly the people that are listening to the show probably have a predisposition to be interested in the academics of play,
Yes.
and that's one of the key journals in that space. Really, there's nothing else like the Strong.
Yes.
It's a remarkable place that does remarkable work for everyone who is interested in any kind of play
Mm-hmm.
hobby, toys,
Yeah.
games, video games, you name it.
Yeah. From the stick and the ball to video
Right.
games. I mean, it's
I,
incredible what they accomplish.
I remember one time when they were announcing the candidates for the toy that year's induction into the Toy Hall of Fame. They had stuff, whatever, like Tetris and the Rubik's Cube and like kind of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
quintessential toys. And one of them was the ball, and I was kind of like, well, I guess, I mean that has to win. Like, there's nothing, you can't get much more than like, yeah, a stick and a ball.
I would love to have been in that board meeting where someone's like,
Right.
Tetris, Barbie, and then the other guy's just sitting back. He's like, ball. You're like,
Right.
ah!
It's like, yeah, I can't argue with that. It's a little bit on the nose. Yeah.
You played the ball card. We had no idea.
Yeah. It's like
We
the
thought we had
ultimate
him.
power move.
That's right. Whatever you say, Monopoly,
Right.
Transformers, he's got the trump card.
Right.
Ball.
That wins. Yeah, the ball.
Wait, but the only thing that might beat the ball is the stick.
I think I forget. Maybe it might have been.
It might have been the same year. I remember that.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, because at first you're like, "This is hilarious.
Yeah.
This is not even a thing," and you're like, "Oh no, this is the thing. This
Right.
is."
Right. It was several years ago. I haven't thought about this for a while, but I just remember thinking that was hilarious. The ball.
The ball.
The most quintessential toy there is.
Yeah, like, yeah, it's a ball.
Move over, Slinky. Yeah. Right.
you think you own this place, Slinky?
Right.
Let me show you something. I do all the things, not just crawl downstairs. But no, it's fun. No, it's a fantastic opportunity. We're really appreciative to the Strong National Museum of Play for allowing us to have the conference there. And again, it's an experience, if you haven't had, we certainly recommend, because again, the academic journal is all about this. It's about, as we were just saying and joking about, but very seriously, that the quintessential elements of being human, a lot of times, in fact, are, if not almost always are, play. It's in that kind of engagement with the open spirit of like, what works for you and what works for me, and can we enjoy this together? And the instruments of that are secondary, but also primary because you do need to have them around something, right? So the ball, you can play soccer, baseball, football, like you need a ball, right? So is the ball essential? No and yes, it's the same time, right? Like it's the engagement with the people and the experiences you have, but also the ball is central to that.
It's the
Uh,
catalyst.
yes,
It's the
100%.
catalyst for, I mean, and as we could say the same about board games. It's like, I think for many gamers, a
Mm-hmm.
huge draw to this hobby that we love so much is the human connection.
Yes.
Sitting around a table with your friends, laughing, trolling each other, just having a good time. And I think it's in the age of smartphones and technology where we always have screens on. It's nice to take a break from that. But I think really more than anything, a board game is really the reason we love them so much. I think a large reason, anyway, is that it's a catalyst for that kind of human connection that we all.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Stephen, obviously the conference is coming up. We have your academic journal. Anything that you're looking forward to for this upcoming conference, as far as like some of these presentations here, um, like yours, people might from the outside go, "How does this matter and connect?" But certainly once they read it, and obviously this conversation here hopefully will inspire them to do so. And then the stuff that's coming up, whether or not, as far as everyone will be able to attend, we definitely want you to read their work. And there's a lot of interesting dynamic stuff happening here that's outside of the mainstream that you probably wouldn't see anywhere else, but certainly it's something that you might want to engage with because it actually does connect to you and to your world and to your things. You just didn't know that yet.
Right, and that was exactly my experience. I didn't know there was this connection until it hit me in the face.
Yes.
And having at the 2024 conference, I was really it was fascinating just to hear the kind of all the different angles that academics have and are taking to use games as teaching tools and research tools.
Yes.
I mean, I remember one of the presentations about using games, for people with autism,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I mean, it's like it's very different than my research, but it's eye opening in a whole other way, and
Yes.
and I think that a gathering like this, like the Board Game Academics Conference, it's a great way to just kind of uh, hear what people are doing, hear how people are thinking about board games, maybe in a way that you have never thought about them,
Mm-hmm.
how they can be applied in a way that you might not expect,
Yes.
and how and I think that if you yourself are in an academic circle, I think uh, maybe you've also noticed that sometimes academic institutions are a little bit hesitant to embrace games because
Yes.
they're I think that all too often they're viewed as kind of like throwaway entertainment. These are children's toys, and there's no
Sure.
scholastic value to them. But I think that a conference like this helps to kind of push back on that notion and to say, well, hold on, I think there actually is academic, scholastic value, educational value in
Yes.
this. Um, and I think just hearing from a bunch of different people who are doing interesting research about whatever fields they might be in and how board games tie into that, it's just fascinating to me.
Very much so. Again, it's there's so many ways to take this, and I'm really glad that we have such a diverse community that's taking it in so many diverse, vast, and in-depth kind of ways because it is critical and essential to what it makes us to be human. And it's that idea of that experiential education that we need to kind of foster a lot more than we have historically because as wonderful as digital technology has been, it has somewhat separated us, and we really need to bring people to the table. And again, once you bring people to the table, no matter what background, I mean, I was talking about this recently, and with some other people, and it's like you go to a game convention, 40, 50,000 people, generally from a homogeneous kind of population. Sometimes not. There's obviously a wonderful diversity to it. 50, 60,000 people at a game convention. And then typically, depending on the game convention, all you have is tables and chairs. And somehow those people are able to find a way within that larger kind of magic circle of like, let's play games. and you welcome people to the table. You welcome them, and you get, no matter who they are, what they are, where they're from, just like, now we're part of this together. We're part of this community, society. Let's play a game, shared, shared game state, shared goals, and things of that nature. And like, you come away, and again, you don't take the time to think about it. I think with the journal and the conferences, you take the time to recognize the genius of all of that, because that's really who we are. We're not this fragmented, oddly diverse people. We are one. We're, humanity is one type of thing, and these games are, as you said, Stephen, the catalyst to kind of bring us back together, or bring us back to the knowledge that we are together. We're one. We are all that.
Right. I've always thought that games are boundary breakers, in the sense of, we like to often as humans we like to kind of be with our own, our own people,
Yes.
right? If you're in, if you're into this kind of specific kind of music, you often like to go and hang out with other people who like the same kind
Yes.
of music as you do, and we kind of insulate ourselves in those communities. I think
Yes.
board games defeat that often, or they can defeat that. And it's a good way to welcome new folks, meet new friends, see different perspectives,
Yeah.
all in the context of just having a great time.
Absolutely. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fantastic conversation. And again, you can find Stephen's work in the show notes. And if you haven't already, don't forget to register for this semester's Board Game Academic Conference. Details are at boardgameacademics.com. New details coming each and every time. Until next time, keep rolling and thinking critically. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.